Now you might want to have a notebook handy for today because we're going to be sharing a lot of really practical, juicy tips regarding your creative prodigy. And let me just start us off by giving you some kudos for taking the time today to energetically support yourself. I know that it's not easy to set time aside to take care of your mindset and to invest in your development, but you're going to derive real value from this time. So I honor you for doing that for yourself today. You absolutely deserve to have this little magical gem. So for those of you watching, I am Christine Collins and I am going to be your guide today, but we are co-creating this magical experience together. So from one creative innovator to another, I wanted to share with you a little bit about how it is that you and I came to just to be together today at all. So I am, in addition to being a hypnotherapist, I'm a stepmom, I'm a wife, I'm a stubborn Virgo, I'm a Harry Potter and Hello Kitty lover, and I'm also deeply creative. And even though I've been sort of an amateur artist and a writer my whole life, I've often found myself in situations that were mostly devoid of the opportunity to be creative. I started off as a clinical therapist, got my master's in psychology, and I practiced as a certified addiction counselor for several years, working in a prison, counseling inmates, and then I went to a corporate cubicle, which some people might argue is just another type of jail. But I did that as a manager and a corporate trainer for about 10 years. And particularly in that setting, there were sometimes very few opportunities for me to be creative. I found myself kind of seeking it out in unlikely ways. Like as a manager of a team, part of my job was to pull reports of data for my team and put it all onto a spreadsheet. So I would be sitting there color coding my spreadsheet, dressing them up, trying to make them pretty and visually appealing for my team. And I told myself that I was just simply making that information more digestible so that they could work effectively. And that was true. But in hindsight, I can recognize now that there was a part of me just screaming to be heard, that creative part of me, that need, that desire that we all have to use our unique gifts innovatively. It's something that everyone has. And it doesn't really matter the setting or the skill sets that we have. It's really just about being able to be innovative. So one of my final acts in that environment was actually trying to launch a training about positive psychology, which is tied to law of attraction, but is applied to productivity. And it is backed with a ton of research and science. But that topic was just simply too progressive for an environment like that. And so the project was rejected. And I knew in that moment that it was probably going to mean, at least long term, that I would need to find a different way to share that kind of forward-thinking knowledge. And not too long after that, I found myself graduating as a certified master NLP hypnotherapist, which is what I am today, launching my business. And that, my friends, is the story of how you and I happen to be sitting together here today right now, for which I am so grateful. So one of the things that I found repeatedly in all of the roles I've had, both working with addicted inmates in a prison and also with employees in a big corporation, is that our behaviors and our choices and ultimately our success is deeply connected to our mindset, our motivation, and our inspiration. That theme really just kept surfacing everywhere that I was looking. And I ended up doing my master's thesis on motivation. Inspiration is at the heart of everything. And in order to get inspired, we have to get connected to a deeper part of ourselves that we may not often do. There is definitely a spiritual component to what I do now, and it's refreshing to be able to talk about it. But as creators, we share that desire in common to birth our creations. It's a fundamental need of the soul. And then to share those creations and to be recognized as the gifted individuals that we are. So now you may be sitting there wondering if when I use the word creator, whether I mean you. And the answer is yes. Yes, I mean you. You don't have to be painting watercolors or writing songs or sculpting clay to be a creator, although those things count too. The creativity is for everybody. And, while some of us may do things that we would classify as art, creating is such a deep part of who we all are. And we create every day, whether we recognize it as such or not. So in case you're sitting there thinking, well, I deal with data or I do work that doesn't feel very creative, there is creating happening at every level in our business. Doesn't matter what your zone of genius is, health coach, finance whiz, designer, blogger, whatever your focus. If you're interested in boosting your creative prodigy and getting juicy new ideas, this is for you. Because we're creating content all the time, blogs, landing pages, webinars, challenges, programs, choosing how to deliver our services. There is absolutely an element of creativity in how you do that. And we'll talk about why being an innovator and a creative prodigy is so essential to staying at the top of your market. And so, lovely magical creator, as you are coming up with all your new innovative ways to take care of the people that you work with, and you're generating all of your new ideas, you need your creativity. You are a creative prodigy, even if you don't know it yet. You're an innovator. So you may be someone who at times gets stuck having that effective plan that feels really inspired and exciting, or you may want to up-level your juicy ideas, or you may be someone who gets a great idea and then can't seem to follow through because everything under the sun just seems to pop up when you're getting started. You might be a chronic procrastinator when you have something big going on. Whatever that stuck point is, the tips that I have for you are going to help you because they're really practical and they're really easy. What happens when we overlook our creative prodigy is that we don't position ourselves as successfully as we could. And when we don't innovate and we don't fully utilize our creativity, what happens is we sound the same as everyone else. We offer what 100 other people are offering. Nothing really sets us apart. Our word choices are not exciting and fresh. Our clients don't feel the excitement of working with us, and we just aren't as interesting. Our offers just aren't as compelling or unique, and our content is kind of ordinary and uninspired. You might also feel like you're just sort of doggedly pushing yourself through the paces. And the problem with that is that your energy comes through in your marketing and in what you're delivering. So if you aren't thrilled and excited about what you're creating and putting out there, your clients won't be either. And I think there's really a space for all of us in what we offer, but there does have to be something unique about what you're offering, and that requires creativity and innovation. Now, when you are protecting, enhancing, and nurturing that creativity, when you're really in your creative self and you're maximizing that inner prodigy, you feel excited. You wake up in the morning and the thoughts are just kind of popping in, the ideas are flowing, and you're eager to get into the work. You want to jump out of bed because you're excited to get started. So if you're not experiencing that level of eagerness, it may be a sign that your creativity isn't flowing. That is the well of your inspiration, and it's what drives us and excites us about our projects. It's where that motivation and the energy comes from to drive our products forward and provide the highest level of service possible. Now, being really lit up and on fire to get things done is not something that we need to sustain every second of every day. But when it comes into getting the work done, it will be a much smoother process if you're consistently inspired and in creative flow. So if you try to sit down to work before you pave that creative way, you'll work so much harder, like you're trying to squeeze out ideas and content with hardly any flow. And it makes the work more difficult than it really needs to be, compared to walking in with the ideas that have been delivered to you, and now you just implement them and kind of get them into motion. And having that experience can come from simple rituals that you put into place to awaken and use that prodigy effectively. So you are ready to share your magic with the world. Allow me to introduce to you the pillars of the creation process. These are foundational pieces that will help you to gain more insight around how your creation happens, and more importantly, where some of the stuck points are and what to do about them. I've had people ask me, how do you do it? How do you seem like you're constantly on the cutting edge and really always having just new, good, juicy ideas and doing things really differently? Like, where's the source of all this? And I just kind of laugh and say, well, it's definitely not out there. It's in here. And part of the answer is that it comes naturally to me. But the reason that it does come naturally is because there are some very specific practices that I have in place. So it's more so something that I foster. It's something that I nurture with specific practices, and it's something that I protect. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. So the first piece here is the idea conjuring. So being creative and getting those new ideas, it's not just a matter of being lucky. There's this discipline involved. And no matter what it is we're creating, we have to start with an idea. And it could be either an active or a passive process to get to that idea. So sometimes we're sitting and trying to conjure an idea for something, kind of like a brainstorming session. And at other times, it'll just kind of flow in during a meditation or downtime, which is really the best and most fun way to receive it. To truly be an innovator, it's great when the ideas flow in during that space of mental stillness, rather than when you're out there kind of looking for ideas, or you're scrolling social media and you're peeking at what other people are up to. When a new idea really lights you up and it came from that place of inner stillness and you feel a sense of calm excitement, those are often the ones that are going to pan out the best for you and lead you to the best outcomes. Your most juicy ideas will come when your mind is still. If you've ever sat up suddenly in the middle of the night, needing to grab a pen and paper to write something down, this brilliant thing that came to you, I have really good news for you. It is possible to train your mind to do that, but to do it at times that are more convenient for you. Might sound like a weird analogy, but we've already trained our bodies to go to the bathroom only when we're awake. We can do the same thing with the how and the when we receive those genius idea downloads. The key is making sure your mind knows that it will have the opportunity to present the new ideas to you by having a regular routine of time slated to receive ideas and for idea conjuring. So if your daily mind is just going task, 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 your creative mind never gets its chance. And so it happens when you finally try to unwind for the night, which of course is not ideal. So that leads us to our first practical tip for today, that you can train your mind to come up with juicy new ideas when you want it to and on demand. But you must schedule regular creative downtime. This way, your brain knows that you will be allowing in fresh and exciting new ideas during a regular spot during the week or the day or the month. It's up to you how to implement that. But some ideas could be scheduling it for in the shower on Saturday mornings only, or during a monthly massage, or doing yourself a favor and slating meditation time at least once a week and more if you can. And it also helps if you go ahead and tell your creative mind, whether it's through an internal thought, or you could say it out loud or write it down, hey, I would dearly love to get juicy creative new ideas when I am doing blank or at this time. You might be surprised how eager your subconscious mind is to work on your behalf and to make that happen for you. So practical tip number 1 is downtime and rest. And even though it might sound like an ordinary thing, when it comes to conjuring juicy new ideas, giving your mind that downtime is really essential. even if it sounds counterintuitive to being productive. It's essential for creativity. And that can be hard to do if you're just constantly focused on the next thing and the next thing. We do have a lot of things to keep track of, but it's really important to nurture that mental downtime. Now, I do mean mental downtime, not just physically sitting still to do nothing. Actually giving your brain a rest from active thought. The key point is really clearing the mental clutter and getting into a higher vibe state where you are open to receiving juicy new ideas. So it's less about what you're doing on the outside than what's happening for you on the inside. Now, this is usually the point where someone will stop me and say, well, what if I can't get my mind to shut up? How do I clear the mental clutter so that I can create? Don't worry, I got you. Hang tight with me here because we're going to talk about that also. The important part is to guard and monitor your thoughts to keep them focused on high vibration tendencies, because that's when the creative ideas tend to drop in. It's really hard to be innovative and to have that creative mind when we're vibing low and feeling negative. So for example, if you're staring off into space, having your do nothing scheduled time, you're doing nothing physically, but inside your mind, you're just replaying last week's frustrating argument with someone, it doesn't count. The only juicy new ideas you're likely to get with that activity is what you should have said during the argument. And that's clearly not what we're going for. So how you choose to practice your downtime will depend largely on the vibration that you started off with. So if you're starting off with, you're having a good day, you're feeling pretty happy, pretty high vibe, you might be able to meditate just in silence and use that time well, and just, really sit there and use that time effectively. But for those of us who have had this experience, that there are days when you're already feeling tired or frustrated or grumpy, those are the days that you might need some external support. For myself, those are the days that I grab one of my own hypno tracks or another guided audio. I have a collection to help get me there, because it allows my mind chatter to quiet as I focus on the audio. When your mind is sitting there going, me, 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 and you're rehashing or mulling over something, it's really difficult to quiet that chatter without some discipline and practice. And the external support can be very, very helpful there. Listening to an audio gives you a way to focus on a positive message that's coming in, something that's already reinforcing the vibration that you want to be in. And it's a quick way to help you kind of flip that switch. And as a side note here for you on the importance of sleep, while those of you who, maybe sometimes don't get quite enough, we can shift our vibrations once they're in play. It is possible, like we were just talking about, but the easier way to go about things is to make your best effort to follow practices that set you up for the best possible approach to your day, and that includes adequate rest. I know as well as anyone that is not always possible. I have been guilty many times of staying up too late. For those of you that see me around online, you know this. And also recently I went through an 18-month period of having a very slow healing, painful injury that kept me awake a lot of the night in pain. But to the extent that you are able, as much as possible, please try to get adequate rest, which may mean saying no to things, but it will affect how you enter your day and how creative you will be. Your creative mind really needs rest to function at optimal capacity. So now I would suggest that you take a moment for yourself and write down some vibration shifters that work for you. These are things that can help you to flip that switch when you're having an uninspired or frustrating day. The goal is to get higher vibing. so that you can kind of flick on your creative mind with more ease. So just some examples: you can clear your mind through moving, through walking, swimming, dancing, yoga, music, drumming, and then guided audio, which I already mentioned. I personally like using water immersion because water is a conductor and a powerful transformational tool, and that can be achieved by swimming, bathing, even a quick shower to just kind of rinse off the day. And this, you have to figure out kind of what works for you, make it really personalized for you. It only takes a few minutes to shift your vibration. It doesn't have to be a big time commitment at all. The goal is simply to get your mind to stop the chatter, help it to move into creative mode, because it's really hard to create when we're stressed out and unhappy. There is so much scientific research and evidence that we are more creative and we solve problems more effectively when we do it from a place of feeling positive and happy versus stressed out and negative. And this is really the crux of all mindset and creativity work, which is why I make it the very first thing that we talked about today, because if we had covered this at the end, you probably would just dismiss it after all of the other juicy things that I give you. So now if you're sitting here kind of nodding in agreement that this all sounds great, I'm really glad. But there is obviously more to this than just agreeing that it sounds like a good idea. Waiting for someone or something to cancel your plans in order to get your downtime is not really a strategy. So take a moment for yourself and acknowledge that this is a new desire that you have for yourself. Even if you can't really immediately work out yet exactly how you're going to create that time for yourself, I know that there's a ton of things that have to get done, and dinner to be made, and kids to be picked up, and everyday business work that has to happen. And so I can't tell you how to design your schedule in a way that works for you. Only you can do that. But if you just kind of think through it and make that commitment to yourself, you will definitely reap the benefits. And I can also tell you that it's very important to make it a priority and to kind of nurture and protect it as a scheduled priority. So, finding that spot somewhere in your week or day or month and putting it on your calendar, and then protecting that time the same way that you do all of your other appointments. And then finally, making sure that you don't beat yourself up for not doing it. That doesn't help your vibration. I would say that about almost anything. Creating more icky, yucky feelings won't help. Just do your best. Try to make it a scheduled priority to the best extent that you can. So once you have your juicy new idea, it can help to do some intentional visioning. Visioning is visualizing the desired outcome of your creation, imagining that it's done, and more importantly, that it's succeeding in whatever way you wish it to, and being specific about the sensory details and the emotional outcome of that future result. Now, if you don't already know this, visualization has a very heavy science backing. It's used by sports psychologists who work with Olympic champions to help them increase their success. They'll have them run the course fully in their mind, down to all of the sensory details to prepare for their physical performance. And there is a lot of science about why this works. There have been studies done with stroke victims who had trouble moving certain limbs, and they found that the same regions of the brain were activated when the patient simply thought of moving that limb as if they had actually been able to move it. So visualizing activates the same regions in the brain as the experience. And there's additional evidence that the brain also records visualizations as memory. So when you're visioning doing a thing or experiencing a thing, it lays down the neural pathways of that occurrence, just like a memory or experience, which makes it more likely to be reproduced again. So creating success and other specific outcomes in your mind's eye is an incredibly effective way to get them to happen out there in 3D reality. So here are a few key tips to make sure that your visioning is as effective as possible. Number one, visualize what you want and not what you don't want. You drive in the direction that you're looking and in the direction that you're focused. So you want to keep your powerful mind on the final prize, and your mind can more easily focus on the presence of something rather than the absence of something. So make sure that when you're visioning, you're focusing intently on the presence of or the creation of the thing that you want rather than on anything that you wish to avoid. Number two, connect the visuals to an emotion. This will help to reinforce that neural recording and the impact of the vision. So joy, excitement, feeling thrilled or pleased or really satisfied. How will you feel when this happens? And go ahead and envision all of the emotions that you're likely to feel. Not just the positive emotions, but all of the little details that you might not think about immediately. For example, maybe if something comes about, you'll be thrilled that it happened, but maybe it'll also mean a tiny little bit of frustration with some technology things, but overall a feeling of being pleased, and so you don't mind that frustration. So try to create that emotional outcome as realistically as possible. What are all of the things that you will actually feel? And as a little side note, this is also a very helpful way to catch any sneaky worries about that outcome that could later present themselves as self-sabotage along the way. And we're going to talk more about that a little bit later too. Thirdly, include as many sensory details as possible. So these are sounds and scents and textures and images. The more you can bring that visualization to life with the sensory details, the more you can give your mind the ability to record it as a valid memory. And now at some point, we obviously will need to take action on the project. So I want to clarify how I'm using this term because I do see it used pretty often by a lot of different people. So when I'm talking about inspired action, I mean action that directly comes as a result of inspiration. So you woke up with a great idea and then you went and you put it into motion. You got the idea, you visioned the outcome like we just talked about, and from that vision, you derive a plan for how to reach the outcome. Now, your action plan is inspired only when it comes from that vision. It also has to be unique for you and customized to the way that you work. You know, sometimes having somebody else give you a blanket plan to work from is not as effective as designing one that's based on your goals and your personality. But the most important element here in this context is that it's inspired and it comes directly out of that vision. So an inspired action plan involves starting at the end result. So you have visioned, you know the goal, it's very clear. And then we're doing a process called reverse imagineering, which is a term in NLP for a process that begins with an outcome and then taking you all the way back, walking backward in time to help you determine all of the steps that you need to take. So to help kind of bring this to life for you, I'm going to give you a scenario for us to kind of compare inspired versus uninspired. So scenario one, we'll call this the uninspired plan. So you wake up, you go sit at your computer, you've determined that today you're going to write 2 blogs, or maybe you're going to design half of a webinar. Insert your own thing. You sit down, you stare at your blank screen, you type a few really uninspired lines, and you mostly feel like you're squeezing blood from a stone. We've all been there, right? I've been there. I'm sure you have too. This is trying to force the action, and it wastes more time than it really benefits you. So second scenario, now we have inspired. You wake up, you choose to spend an extra 10 or 15 minutes, maybe meditating, maybe listening to a guided audio, some music or drumming, or even in silence. Last night, before bed, you asked your subconscious mind to help you with whatever the desired thing is today, writing the blog, doing the webinar. And during your guided audio time, you sit bolt upright with a brilliant idea. You can hardly reach your phone fast enough to type out a quick note to yourself. You're ready to head to the laptop and begin writing, where the words just kind of flow easily and your hands can hardly fly over the keys fast enough to get it out. Pretty big difference. And that 10 or 15 minutes that you spent listening to that guided audio or doing that meditation time might have saved you hours. So here's one last example, and this one is using that reverse imagineering process that I mentioned. So we'll compare these two. Scenario one, you're working on a bigger scale project, one where there's multiple pieces, like creating a new program or creating a webinar, something where there's a lot of little moving parts. And so you need to decide what to work on specifically for today. You get up in the morning and you sit down and you're just not sure what to do next. Maybe you try to follow some advice that you got about the right order of things to work on, but it's just not like flowing for you. So you stop, you do a few other things. Maybe you do some Facebook posts or tidy up the kitchen and try again, but you're just not getting anywhere. You don't feel inspired to complete anything and you're not sure what to focus on. Second scenario, this one with the reverse imagineering. So you lay there an extra couple minutes after your morning meditation or your guided audio time, and in your mind, in the form of visioning, you fast forward to the end goal outcome of what you want to create. You can see yourself successfully making sales on the new program that you're trying to design. So then you rewind just a little bit to the steps you took right before that first sale happened to reach that outcome. Maybe it was posting an offer on social media, or maybe it was creating your sales page. This lets you know that those things need to happen and that the occurrence of them is kind of at the end of your process. It also gives you an idea of all of the things that need to occur and when. Since you're imagining it how you want it to be, you're also observing ideas for what you want to include. So then you keep rewinding back further and further, taking each of those steps in your vision all the way backwards until you get to today and the work that needs to happen today. Now, this works a lot better when you write it down right away after you vision it. You can also vision it piece by piece and kind of pause and write down the steps as you go. So, kind of close your eyes, imagine it, write down what you see. And there is a full reverse imagineering process, but this is to give you a little bit of a peek and a way to use this helpful tool, because now you have a clear outline. You have a clear plan of action that is specifically designed to reach your goal and your desired outcome. And that is the power of having an action plan that's inspired and connected to a vision of your success and that intended result. So now as we get going with the plan and we're in creation mode, it's almost inevitable that along the way we are going to encounter obstacles. And for those of us who have worked on bigger picture projects before, we can just about all attest to this, right? Sometimes there's a technology issue. Things take longer than expected. There may be a glitch. Sometimes we have an unexpected family or health issue or an unpleasant distraction, something that affects our concentration and our ability to kind of move forward. And sometimes the obstacle is within ourselves. We might become fearful about moving forward for one reason or another. So that's kind of like a mindset issue. Now, all of these different things can really slow down our momentum. Obstacles are like adding molasses to our creative flow. And that momentum is really important on a project in order to get it done. The juicy idea alone is not enough. The inspired action alone is not enough. The obstacles have to get solved. So while I do help people with brainstorming juicy ideas, and I tend to be kind of like a never-ending well of ideas, and I certainly help with visioning, but oftentimes the spot where people really feel like they need support is in this little area where they're getting stuck. And one thing that will really slow down any creation process is our old friend, that seductive temptress, procrastination. You know, we joke about it quite a bit, but understanding what actually causes it and having some easy ways to manage it can be very helpful. And it's really the only way to get to that prodigy level when it comes to creating. Now, your procrastination is usually caused by one of four things. The first one is that you don't know what to do next. So we just talked about that one. That is not having that inspired action plan. You just don't know the next step. The second reason is that you have lost connection to your original vision. So therefore you've lost your excitement. And we're going to talk about that with revisioning. It's very easy to fix. And then the third reason is you don't really believe that the outcome you want is possible. You don't really believe that it's possible. And therefore you aren't inspired to keep moving. You know, the energy isn't in it because you don't really believe in it. And we'll take care of that with restoring. And then the fourth reason is you have divided desire about the thing. So part of you wants it and part of you doesn't. There's a fear underlying there, and you may not necessarily be aware of it. So we're going to talk about that next. And I'm going to give you practical tips and a little bit of magic, because, you know, sometimes you're like already in the thick of it and you just need like a band-aid to be able to just keep moving. And then when you have more time though, I want to make sure that you have the support to knock out the core issue so that you can really address it for good. So these are a handful of practical tips about procrastination. This is kind of like the band-aid approach, but they do work really well. So the first one is procrastinate on purpose. Be deliberate about it. If you know you are likely to procrastinate, simply build it into your plan. The thing is, when you allow yourself to get sucked into something that wasn't part of the plan, you start to feel powerless and unhappy and frustrated with yourself. And that's where you're beating up on yourself. And now your vibration is getting lower and lower. When you procrastinate on purpose, it gives you your power back. So now it's not happening by accident anymore. Instead of waking up with a plan to write a blog or do your landing page and somehow mysteriously getting pulled into a half an hour wiping down the kitchen counter and tidying up the laundry room, instead, you're actually building your procrastitopic into your day. So give yourself 10 to 20 minutes, something that you are choosing to procrastinate on. And now choose wisely. This is where you really have power. I don't recommend Facebook scrolling as a procrastitopic because it's more difficult to allot a finite amount of time unless you're going to set an alarm. And even if you do that, make sure you give yourself like a 5-minute buffer in case you get caught up in something. But choose it, whatever it is, choose it deliberately. I also don't recommend things like reorganizing because that can be like a never-ending onion and turn itself into an all-day thing. Allow yourself to do this thing, have it be part of the plan, and then stick to that plan. Take your power back, set times for your procrastination, allow a specific amount of time, and choose it rather than having it choose you. The second thing is to have a list of options, things that need to be done. Sometimes the ickiest thing, like we might get really excited about a project, and then when we know we have to sit down and do it and it turns into a have to, it's not fun anymore. Isn't it funny how that happens? So consider having a list of other tasks that you know you need to do. I always know that the fastest way for me to get an undesirable task done is to schedule time to work on something that I'm not fully ready to work on yet. So just to give you an example, I recently had a huge project of migrating content from one system to another while I was planning my webinar, as well as doing some other content. And at the same time, I needed to gather information for taxes. Now, I could have cleaned the kitchen or done one of those other things, but I knew that the tax work was the least desirable of all of my business projects, and I wasn't quite ready to get into my content development yet. So guess what? I procrastinated by doing my taxes. And at the end of all of it, I was pleased that I had gotten them done. So it's a way of choosing your procrastination wisely. Have a list of things, other things that you don't want to do, and you might be amazed at what you can knock out while you're procrastinating. Having a list of ongoing projects is helpful too, other things that you need to work on. And that way you can kind of like pick and choose what, work on this for a little while, work on that, whatever you feel drawn to, whatever feels best to you on that day. And then it also feels more like a choice and less like a have to. So when you start tackling the things that you really dislike, that you're in procrastination mode. But clearing up those little unpleasant things can also kind of clear space to make it easier for you when you do sit down to create, that you don't have that kind of, pulling at your mind also. And when it comes to the way you tell yourself what you need to work on, using incremental language can be very helpful. Often the appeal of a procrastination is that it feels like something easy to do, like just wiping down the counter, versus like this enormous project that you've got set up for yourself to create this new program. So I invite you to consider using incremental language, incremental goals. So language that reduces overwhelm. If you tell yourself that you're going to write a book, or you're going to craft a webinar, or you're going to create a sales funnel, those are really overwhelming big picture projects. Don't try and write a book, try and write a page. So tell yourself, I'm going to write a page. I'm going to design a slide. Try to keep it one step and, as simple and incremental as possible. And then the last one is schedule just 10 minutes. So if you can talk yourself into working on your thing for just 10 minutes, sometimes you'll really get into it and you'll keep going. But even if you don't, at least you got 10 minutes done, 10 or 15 minutes, towards whatever that goal is. And, I understand the benefits of batching, and I do that too. So it's really a balance for you. Right now, I'm just talking about oiling the wheel, getting yourself motivated to just sit down and begin. So it feels a lot less overwhelming to say you're just going to work on it for 10 minutes than it does thinking that you're going to devote an entire day to something like that. So now I want to share with you how to actually fix procrastination based on its root causes once and for all, so that when you're ready to be really done with it and you have a little time, you can nip it completely. So when procrastination is caused by that divided desire that I mentioned, where there's a part of you that wants a thing and a part of you that doesn't, basically there's that part of you that's unsure about whether creating this thing is really such a good idea. That part of you might be a bit uncertain whether more money or more success or more visibility is really such a good idea. So you don't take the steps that you need to in order to get those things to happen. And it can stem from what I call little micro traumas that we experience along the way in life. They may be imperceptible to your waking conscious mind. We're usually well aware of like the bigger traumas and the things that we remember and we talk about for years. But under the surface, we also have these little micro traumas, these little mini rejections, mini experiences that have influenced our beliefs and our feelings. So here's an example with kind of a funny little cute story for you. When I was 5 years old, I wrote a little boy a love letter in kindergarten, and he never talked to me again because obviously I scared the bejesus out of him. So I walked away from that experience with the story that it wasn't safe to express my love or admiration of someone else because it would scare them off. Now, this is an example of a micro trauma because on the surface, it was really just a cute little funny story that the adults kind of giggled over. But at some level, it created a story for me that actually lasted for a while. The next time I liked a boy, I was careful not to tell anyone, and I actually ended up with a bit of a pattern of being really mean to the boys that I liked. Do you see how that kind of unfolded? And then a more adult example that you may be able to relate to on some level would be if you were to put your offer out there into 12 different Facebook groups and not a single person even liked it, let alone commented on it. Now, maybe the next day you went right on about your work because it was so small that you didn't want to focus on it. You didn't want it to kind of hold you back. You just wanted to keep moving. But that sense of feeling invisible or rejected still goes into these little micro traumas. And it doesn't always happen, but sometimes our subconscious mind takes that little, rejected, upset feeling part and breaks off from the conscious whole in order to protect us so that we can just continue living. Now, of course, we can't go hide in a closet just because some troll makes a negative comment on a video, which has happened to me several times. And the first time it ever happened, I didn't want to do a live stream for like a week until I saw what was going on and I took care of it at the subconscious level. But we're just always trying so hard to be resilient. We might shove it aside to keep moving forward, which is okay, but that little microparticle is still there, still broken off, still carrying those feelings of rejection. The emotional content of what happened is still there. And so, this is one reason that I don't advocate sort of muscling through things without at least doing something at the subconscious level to take care of that core thing. To me, muscling through is the same as following a crash diet just to lose weight without ever fixing the underlying cause. That little microparticle can trigger again the next time and the next time, even if we muscled through it this time. So when we talk about self-sabotage, we often describe it as an urge to harm ourselves. And we use silly phrases like shooting ourselves in the foot, which is, in my opinion, unnecessarily violent, but it's also inherently incorrect. We don't self-sabotage to hurt ourselves. Yes, that little broken off part of us is sabotaging the bigger goals, but it has its main goal of protecting us, not harming us. Basically, it wants us to never again experience that rejection or that pain or whatever it was, that emotional harm. So getting us to clean the kitchen instead of doing the live stream, or convincing us to update the website instead of reaching out to a prospective client becomes the thing. So what do? Well, we have to address that little micro part, that sub-persona. We have to address that hesitation about the success, reunite it back with the unified whole. Basically, we need to acknowledge that part and its goal of protecting us, of safety. So here is a really simple technique that you can do rather quickly. The first thing that you do is you envision that little micro part of you, whatever you want to call it. You want to make it tangible. So thinking of it as having a shape and a color and a texture. You can have it be a little cartoon or an animal or a little personality. Because the thing is that when we're talking about these abstract parts of ourselves, it can be kind of difficult to get our mind around what we're talking about. So it really helps to make it tangible. Just make it feel real to you. So now, imagining this little part of yourself calling it out into your hand for a little chat with all those tangible details, the color, the texture, the shape. Invite it out, thank it for coming, and then ask what the goal is. What is its goal? And usually the goal of that part of yourself is to keep you safe from further emotional or physical harm. So then together you can come up with a new task. Right now its task is derail your project by getting you to clean the kitchen. Give it a new task that aligns with its goal of safety, but also with your project goal. So as an example, if its goal is to prevent social criticism and it wants to keep you safe from those feelings of rejection, so it's having you do all these other things instead of sitting down and doing the live stream or the webinar, assign it a task related to your project that also creates more confidence and reduces the likelihood of rejection. So you could put it in charge of creating really slam dunk content, or asking for testimonials, or setting up a camera filter on Facebook Live so that you can have a little more confidence there. Whatever it is, the point is that it now has a purpose, and you are kind of this unified whole that have a focus that both keeps you feeling safe and also doesn't detract from your big picture goal anymore. It's almost like if you're trying to make dinner and you have a little kid in the kitchen and you're trying to make dinner and they're just, making a mess, throwing food everywhere. You give them a small constructive task that contributes to the bigger picture goal, like setting the table, getting out the silverware. And just know that even though doing this kind of thing, this kind of a technique, it may feel unfamiliar to you, because it may be a different way than you're used to interacting, with yourself. Just remember, there's no wrong way to do this. It's all you. It's just a dialogue between you, and you can do it however you like, and you can be as creative and imaginative as you're comfortable with. Now, we talked earlier about those 4 things that typically cause procrastination. And one of these is disconnection from the original vision. As we get going with our creation, sometimes we forget that original excitement that we first had when we conjured that juicy new idea. So revisioning is simply reconnecting to the original vision, that excitement that you had when you first got the idea, conjuring back up the feelings and the emotions of the outcome, the sights and the sounds, and this will add fresh momentum back into your work. So here is a really quick and easy way to reconnect to the importance of your project while reducing the impact of any current distractions. I call this process archiving the moon. It is a little bit more on the magical side, but it's quick and easy and very effective. So in your imagination, conjure up the night sky with all of the stars and constellations in it. And think of the night sky as being a lovely projector, a screen for you to project the inside of your mind out onto. So that now as you look up, you can see little thumbnail images or icons of each thing in your mind that is important to you. So there's an icon for your business, an icon for family and friends, your health, and all the other things in your world. So now identify the icon of the topic that you're being distracted by. Maybe it's ruminating over a recent argument, or worrying about a health issue, or feeling frustrated with some tech issue that you just can't solve. Notice the thing that is most on your mind and causing all the distraction that's kind of pulling you away from your work appears the largest on your screen. It's as if it's taking up most of the screen, or maybe even all of it, while the other icons appear much smaller. So now identify the location of the icon for your current project, your creation thing, the thing that's lighting you up and exciting you. And notice kind of where it is on the screen, left or right, high or low. And then notice its relative size compared to the distraction. If the distraction is really consuming your mind and pulling you away from your project, it's probably sitting much larger and more prominently on the screen. So take that overlarge distraction and using 2 fingers, reach up and squeeze that icon all the way down and until it gets, really small, until it's down to a much smaller, more appropriate size. Shrink it all the way down, knowing that this isn't something that you want to make a primary focus right now, even though it has been. Squeeze it all the way down and then slide it right off the projection screen down into a little archive folder. Just kind of tuck it away. It will still be there to come back to later if you need to address it, but at least for now, it's no longer a primary focus. And then go back to your creative project, take that icon and enlarge it, stretch it larger and larger until it fills up most of the screen. And if you need to, you can swipe off any of the other things on there if they're distracting you. And then as you enlarge your project on your screen, call in the memory of why this project is so important to you. Allow yourself to once again feel filled up with excitement about the project and allow it to remain enlarged up there until you're ready to take a break, maybe when you're winding down for the evening. And then you can tuck that away also as you wind down for the night. With some of these obstacles, a lot of them can end up being kind of self-created. And so when that happens, we can use the tool of restoring really easily. And when it's tied to our beliefs, when we get really excited and we start producing something, we might start worrying that it's not good enough, or maybe we run into someone else having done it first, or, we have just kind of this self-doubt. We're second guessing things. So you can always ask yourself, what am I believing about this right now that's blocking me? What is the story that I'm telling about this? So an easy way to catch a limiting belief by the toe is if you kind of conjure up whatever the thing is that doesn't feel good to you, that kind of yucky story, and you think about that topic, you make the statement saying, it will probably work out just fine. It'll probably work out just fine. And then pay close attention to what happens next, the very next thought you have after you say it'll probably work out just fine. Most of the time, that immediate next thought is going to be your limiting belief. And this is a great way to kind of catch them, because there will probably be a but statement, but it never does. But I can't figure it out. But it almost never works out for me. The part of you that doesn't believe that it'll work out fine will kind of pop out here, just like it'll sometimes do when you're in conversation with someone else that's trying to be encouraging. Have you ever caught yourself trying to convince them that it won't work out for you? And you might even keep providing evidence and proof of why it's not going to work out. So, when you're dealing with a limiting belief, there are a couple other hints. One of them is that it'll show up in a critical tone. It might have somebody else's voice or their face. Often there will be language that's very extreme, words like always or never. And the most notable thing is that you feel like crap whenever you're thinking the thought. That negative emotional content is really key to catching the limiting belief, because healthy self-criticism from a very neutral emotional place is different than a yucky limiting belief that really makes you feel like crap about yourself. Okay, so once you've caught that belief, to shift it consciously, just notice its existence. Take on the understanding, the possibility that you might be wrong. Be willing to doubt that belief. As you sit there and kind of argue for the deficiency about why you can't ever figure out technology, or why you can't ever make the sale, or you can't do the visual graphics, stop for a moment and recognize that willingness to doubt it. It's kind of like when you were a little kid and you used to believe in Santa Claus wholeheartedly. And then one day your perspective shifted because you got new information. So you changed your belief. And that's what we do with old limiting beliefs. We open the mind to the understanding that we don't know everything, creating space for a new belief to be adopted instead. And when you're reaching for that new belief, I recommend that you just go 1 or 2 points up on the spectrum to something graspable and believable. So don't try to go from I suck at technology to I'm amazing at technology as your new belief. Instead, try something like I can often figure things out when I put effort into it or when I ask for help. Boom, there you have a healthy new belief. Now, we can also shift some of these beliefs and sabotage at the subconscious level with a tool like hypnotherapy. And, we've talked through all of the other stages of the creation process, but when it comes to manifesting, that final stage of getting your work out there and shared and sold and loved and adored, sometimes we do all that work and then we still don't want to share it, or we don't really believe in our success and don't take the steps that are necessary for the success. There may be a story in there about worthiness or not good enough that we're not even aware of. This stage is most effectively supported with that deeper magic of something like hypnotherapy. There really is no faster way to shift a belief or self-sabotage or some story about success in your programming than through hypnotherapy. These are the things that are operating under the surface. And hypnotherapy can change it rather easily without you having to revisit the old trauma and unpleasant feelings and experiences without having to trudge through the mud. So the way that hypnotherapy works is it shifts you seamlessly into what is known as the alpha brainwave state. Alpha is the state just between sleep and full wakefulness. It's the state of consciousness in which we're more suggestible or open to suggestions from an outside source. Because when we're fully awake, our critical mind will intervene. So if you carry a belief that your work isn't valuable and you hear a statement saying that it is valuable, your conscious critical mind can dismiss that pretty easily because that statement doesn't fit in with the existing program. But when you're in that alpha state, your critical mind is relaxed and that guard dog is napping. And so we can slip in these statements and your subconscious mind can receive them and begin to reprogram at a really deep level. So it's obviously important that you're discerning about the stimuli that you pull in, while you're in that alpha state, which is one reason why I tell people don't watch TV while you're falling asleep. But when you're talking about something like hypnotherapy, this is for your therapeutic benefit, and your hypnotherapist's goal is to help you. They are focused intently on your desired outcomes, and they want to achieve whatever your goal is to achieve with the process. There's a lot of research around the benefits of hypnotherapy. There have been studies done around the world to show its efficacy, treating everything from phobias to physical pain. There was a study of reduction in pain that was done in post-operative patients that was so significant in the reduction in pain, it saved hospitals hundreds of dollars per patient because they just didn't need the pain meds after surgery. And in another study, they measured wound care pain. Patients who had hypnotherapy experienced a 90% reduction in pain, as well as an 84% reduction in anxiety. And there's study after study with really impressive outcomes validating the efficacy of hypnotherapy. So if you have age-old programming that was kind of put in early on in childhood or in adulthood in an extreme circumstance, such as an abusive relationship, and even some of those little micro traumas that we talked about earlier, hypnotherapy is a fabulous tool for shifting that programming to something more positive. And I think it's helpful to distinguish the difference between hypnotherapy and other types of support that is equally valid but not the same. So there are a lot of fabulous guided audio tools out there. I use them too. There's things like meditations and yoga nidra and affirmation tracks, all very valuable but different from hypnotherapy. there's a very methodical and even scientific process to the way a hypnotherapy track is designed. So we begin with what's called the induction, and that is a process carefully crafted to guide you down into that alpha state. And you could use the same induction every time. It really doesn't matter. It's just to help get you relaxed. And in fact, sometimes if you do repeat the same one, your mind will begin to get trained that this series of words and phrases means it's now time to relax. Once you're past the induction and you get down into alpha, this is where the magic in hypnotherapy really is. Many other tools use something to relax you, but it's the hypnotic suggestions which happen in the middle when you're already deeply relaxed that are so powerful. Your certified hypnotherapist designs these through a meticulous process. So it's not just a matter of kind of taking your goal and writing some phrases or, positive statements. Your hypnotherapist goes through a precise process to craft the suggestions, and it can take a couple of hours to go through all of the steps to really choose the right language. And taking into account things like how you're motivated, whether you're toward motivated or away motivated, whether you're drawn to things or you're trying to avoid things. That's only one little tiny piece with regard to how we're motivated. And the purpose in sharing some of those details with you is just to help you understand how carefully designed your hypnotherapy is. There's nothing random about it, and there are many, many things that are kind of taken into account. So now I would like to, without further ado, is unveil customized hypnotherapy recordings with a 70-minute one-on-one Prodigy session. So you may already be familiar with my existing hypnotherapy packages, and they are tailored around specific outcomes. But with customized hypnotherapy, we will sit down one-on-one and talk about your goals, determine what's really challenging you, and it can be related to your creation process, to any of the different things that we talked through here today, or we also talked about obstacle clearing, and that is just as important to your creation process as visioning and idea conjuring and all of those other pieces, because when our mind is tied up with family issues and health issues and sleep issues, we're not able to create effectively. And that's why I have such a vast library of different topics for creators, because we're whole people and we have lots of different elements going on in our worlds that can impact our creation process. And so with this package, you can decide on what you specifically would like to have improved. We'll choose up to 3 topics. So you could do, if you want to just focus in on one major area, you can do that. But up to 3 focus areas can be included. Now, I did this for myself. And, if you're subscribed to the webinar, you'll receive a follow-up email with my personal story. So I won't get into that right now, but I will tell you that I saw major shifts in the areas that I needed help with. And even though I already knew how powerful hypnotherapy is because of all my work with my clients and I've received it myself, I was still completely wowed by the outcomes that I got from having customized hypnotherapy as a recording that was designed just for me. So I've been refining this process over the last several months, creating recordings for only a very select few people so that I can make sure that it delivers something of incredible value. So here is what comes with the package. It is a customized hypnotherapy recording that includes a 70-minute one-on-one session with me to talk through those areas of importance. Make sure that you have a good plan to implement on how you're going to use your recording effectively. And then after our one-on-one, I will go off, I will design your script and your recording. I will record and produce your recording, move it through a very high quality post-production process. I will set it to soothing music, and I will also select for you a goddess whose energy is connected to your unique needs, your situation, so that the things that you're working on will receive extra goddess support, and the package will be named after your goddess, and her image will be incorporated into that final result. Excuse me. And then I will also craft a customized ritual using your goddess's energy and personalize it for additional support, for whatever it is that you're working through, and that will accompany your recording. Now, I would say on average, all of this will take about 14 business days, and then you'll receive your customized hypnotherapy recording, instructions on how to use it, your goddess ritual, and then we'll also do a 15-minute follow-up once you've had the chance to implement using your hypnotherapy, just to make sure that everything is going really smoothly for you. So the full price for this package is $288 US, but for you, for a limited time until May 1st, I'm offering this package at a $100 discount for only $188 US. And again, that is only until May 1st. And I don't know if it'll ever be this price again, but I just know how incredibly powerful that it is to have something like this in your daily tool belt. When it comes to managing your mindset and overcoming challenges, hypnotherapy is just one of the most potent, easy to use, fast delivery support tools available. And I believe in it so powerfully. I've experienced it myself, and so have my clients. A lot of hypnotherapists will actually require you to do a minimum of 6 sessions with them, because they know that the magic is really in the repetition of receiving those hypnotic suggestions over and over. So when you think about that, this is such an incredible value, especially considering that my single hypnosis sessions live are $175. And with this beautiful package, you'll get to listen to your recording over and over and keep deriving the benefit of that recorded session. So if you are interested, the link is here. I believe it will also be getting popped into the comments for you. And of course, you'll be receiving a follow-up email from me, with this information too. And now, just a second, I'm going to take a peek at all the comments and the questions, and I will select our winner for the day. Just a quick reminder, in case you missed the beginning of our session, I'm giving away a free hypnotherapy package to one lucky live attendee. You'll be able to choose from my existing library any one of my existing hypnotherapies. So make sure that you have at least popped a hello or a hi somewhere into the comments box if you would like to be eligible to win that. So now I'm going to go ahead over and peek at your questions. And while I do that, here are a couple of my client success stories. I love sharing these. I love reading them. I love sharing them. This is why I do what I do. And this is just kind of a snapshot of some of the really powerful outcomes that have come for folks from using my hypnotherapy recording. So just imagine what your outcomes could be having customized hypnotherapy that you can keep listening to over and over again. It's so nice to see all of you. Hi, Jess. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Karen. See if there's any questions. Yes, Jess, that is why good ideas come in the shower. So that's a great question, because those good ideas usually come in when we're relaxed. So for some of us, it'll come when we're